All right, welcome to Carolina. We're glad you're here. You guys are ready to go this morning. I'm excited to worship with you this morning. If you have your worship guide, and I hope you do, make sure you open it up, look at it, all the good stuff we've got. But tear away this section right here, especially if you're visiting with us. So we've got Senior Recognition Sunday. I know there's many of y'all that came just for your seniors that you're related to, and I'd love for you to fill this out, and I'd love to just send you a letter and tell you how grateful we are that you came and worshiped with us today. And a few things in this worship guide that I want you to be aware of is this form right here that has our VBS needs. So VBS is coming soon, real soon. This is one of the big ministries and outreaches that we have every year here at Carolina. And if you have not filled out your place of interest and volunteering, make sure you fill it out. These are what we need, and we need them soon, all right? So if you could do this, that would be good. It's a great outreach, and it's fun. I enjoy it. I enjoy hanging out with you guys, and I enjoy hanging out with the kids. So please help us out. Everywhere you see a yellow, we need a name beside it. So see Sandra, see the office, sign up, however you need to sign up. Let's make sure we get those filled out. Another thing with the kids is Awana is over. We had a big night last Wednesday night, water slides, and a lot of fun. And I appreciate all of you Awana workers and leaders for helping all year long. But it's over. You guys get a break. And next week, there'll be a break for the kids as well. So we don't have anything next week, but the next week after that, or we don't have anything this week, but the next week is Jaws, okay? So that's Jack's Awesome Wednesday Summers, all right? So Jack, Brother Jack, me, I'm going to handle the kids all summer long, okay? So we're going to have a Bible study every night, and then we're going to have water games every night. All the Bible stories are going to have to do with water as well, so it's just going to be a fun water-filled summer. So make sure that your kids come and be a part of that. Now, Garrett is going to come, and we're going to recognize some seniors that have been a part of his ministry for quite some time.
All right.
You may get those.
Well, do we have anybody that works for the post office in here? Good, so now I can talk bad about them. We ordered their gifts 2 weeks ago and got the shipping notice on May the 13th. So I was like, good, yes, everything nice stuff. And for some unbeknown reason, your gifts have been in a processing center in New Jersey since the 13th. So when they get here, you will have a nice gift. But today, I'm going to ask Jesse Kuhn. Where you at, Jesse? Come on up. Judd, come on with him. Just follow him on down. Rachel, come on up. Emma, Hunter Holmes, and Bess. Y'all come on down. All right. I'm going to share some more memories in my sermon, but I got some memories about each one of them, but we'll save you that until the sermon. But I'm proud of each one of these students, their faithfulness over the years, and just to watch them grow into the adults that they are now is just it's a blessing to see that. Jesse, where's Jesse? All right, Jesse is our most recent senior. He graduated from Opp High School. What? Where you at? Black and gold for life. But he's planning on going to LBW and doing industrial electronics. Judd's going to LBW. He doesn't have much longer. He's got about a year left in his degree of industrial electronics. So all you power line people in here, Power South, Covington Electric, he's your man. All right, in about a year. Rachel is going to Auburn, and she's going to do pre-pharmacy, so good for you, Rachel. Hunter's going to LBW, and then he's going to transfer to Auburn and do electrical engineering. Where's your Power South people at? Brian, you remember him, okay? Write it down. Bess is going to LBW and then going to Troy, and she's going to major in physical education. So, and then Emma is going to LBW and then to Auburn, and she's going to major in business. So Micah, where's Micah at? He's in the nursery probably. Micah, you remember her, all right? So we're proud of our seniors. Y'all give them a hand. All right, y'all can be seated. And we'll talk a little bit more about them in just a second. I got a couple stories that they're going to appreciate me sharing. So, Philip, you come on.
All right. We are very excited for our graduates. And We're all very excited to be here today. All you beautiful people, won't you stand with us? And we'll worship the Lord. We get excited about that. Take the name of Jesus with you. Shout our sorrow and alone. It will joy and comfort give you. Take it anywhere they go. Precious name, oh how sweet. Hope of earth and joy of heaven. Precious name, oh how sweet. Hope of earth and joy of heaven. Take the name of Jesus ever as a shield from every snare. When temptations round you gather, breathe that holy name in prayer. Precious name, oh how sweet. Hope of earth and joy of heaven. Precious name, oh how sweet. Hope of earth and joy of heaven. At the name of Jesus bow we, all in prostrate at his feet. King of kings in heaven will crown him when our journey is complete. Precious name, oh how sweet. Hope of earth and joy of heaven. Precious name, oh how sweet. Hope of earth and joy of heaven. Ah, see if y'all paid attention. Lord, I lift your name on high. Lord, I love to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. You came from heaven to earth to show the way from the earth to the cross. My debt is paid from the cross to the grave, from the grave to the sky. Lord, I lift your name on high. Lord, I lift your name on high. Lord, I love to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. You came from heaven to earth to show the way from the earth to the cross. My debt is paid from the cross to the grave, from the grave to the sky. Lord, I lift your name on high. The splendor of the King, clothed in majesty. Let all the earth rejoice. Let all the earth rejoice. He wraps himself in light, and darkness tries to hide. It trembles at his voice. It trembles at his voice. How great is our God? Sing with me, how great is our God? And all will see how great
children may be dismissed.
Come thou fount of every blessing, tune my heart to sing thy praise. Streams of mercy never ceasing, call for songs of loudest praise. Teach me some melodious sonnet, sung by flaming tongues above. Praise the mount I'm fixed upon, mount of thy redeeming love. Here I raise my Ebenezer, hither by thy help I'm come, and I hold by thy good pleasure safely to arrive at home. Jesus sought me when a stranger, wandering from the fold of God. He to rescue me from danger interposed his precious blood. Oh, that day when free from sinning, I shall see thy lovely face, clothed in blood-washed linen. How I'll sing thy wondrous grace. Come, my Lord, no longer tarry. Take my ransom soul away. Send thine angels now to carry me to realms of endless day. Oh, to grace, how great a debtor daily I'm constrained to be. Let thy grace, Lord, like a feather, bind my wandering heart to thee. Prone to wander, Lord, I feel, prone to leave the God I love. Here's my heart, Lord, take and seal it for thy courts of love. Here's my heart, Lord, take and seal it for thy courts of love.
Amen.
Thank you, Heath. One of my favorite hymns of all times. I love it. Thank you, choir. Such a great job this morning. Today's always a special day for me. I always enjoy this time. These students came into our youth group at the summer after their 6th grade year, and they have been apart. They've been many miles. I wish this week I would have sat down and actually calculated how many miles we've traveled. See, there was a day in our youth group where we could just get in the church van and just go. We'd go to camp. Now listen, one thing that you need to know about our youth trips is we don't just go to the destination, do we, students? The students have made the statement before that the best part of any youth trip that we ever go on is getting there. Because listen, I don't believe in going to point A to B. Amy would tell you on our trips, I have to stop at C, D, E, and all these other things. And the kid, we have the most fun traveling as a group. Now, one of my favorite stories I'm going to share on one of our students, I'm going to share a couple stories, is on Judd. I debated on which story to tell. Now, one of my favorite stories of Judd, going with Judd, is we duck hunted together. Me, Will, Pygott, and Judd, we would go different places and shoot ducks. And the first time we ever went with Judd, we thought Judd was lying to us. He said, listen, there's ducks on top of ducks on top of ducks here. There's like 200 ducks coming in this little bitty pond. And we're like, there's no way. There's not 200 ducks in South Alabama, let alone in one hole. And Judd didn't lie. There was 200 ducks there. And we shot ducks. And as we were looking for ducks that was laying around, you know, of course, we only shot 3 apiece, legal limit. We would never do anything illegal. We were picking those things up. And Judd's over here frantically. We were like in water this deep. And Judd's, I'm like, what is he doing? He's just kind of moving around, and we go over there like, man, what's the matter? He's like, I dropped Daddy's gun. I'm like, you dropped your daddy's gun? He said, yeah, Daddy's Benelli is at the bottom of this pond somewhere. I'm like, oh my gosh. But luckily we found it. He's like, oh, here it is, and he pulled it up, and it still worked, didn't it? He cleaned it up. But some of the youth boys was on a trip with Judd, and they had bought this AM/FM transmitter thing that they plugged into the van. And Brian Capps was driving the van to camp that summer, and they got the bright idea to pretend to be a radio station. And they played the national anthem every hour on top of the hour. And we got to Prattville to eat breakfast, and I mean, listen, we left at like 5 o'clock in the morning. Like, usually kids sleep. Well, they were picking on Brian, and Judd was the ringleader. And they would use this thing, and they were like, are you a music minister that plays the guitar way too hard when you lead worship? That's me. Like, how does this radio station know me? And all the way to camp, they had no idea that Judd was doing that. And later that night, me and Brian was in our dorm room. He's like, man, that was the coolest radio station I've ever heard. And I said, Brian, I need to tell you something, buddy. He said, what? I said, that was Judd Fuqua doing that on his phone. He's like, you mean to tell me for 6 hours I was the butt of their joke? And I said, yeah, you were. So Ronnie, wasn't his name Ronnie? That was what the radio station announcer's name was. I remember going with Bess places, and Bess we would have to talk her into doing some flips. And she would turn some flips for us. And you know, the crazy thing about Bess was every Wednesday night, we couldn't get her to quit talking. I mean, the whole time. If y'all know Bess, you know I'm lying. Bess has said like 7 words her entire youth ministry years, 1 a year. So, no, she's very sweet. Hunter has one of the best attitudes of any kid I've ever seen. He was on the golf team this year, and I pulled up next to him on the golf cart and said, how you doing, Hunter? He's like, I am absolutely terrible. But I'm having the time of my life. And I'm like, hey, what a great example for that. And Hunter has been faithful over the years. Emma, I mean, what can we say about Emma? Sweet little Emma Jean. I really think sometimes she had headaches just so she didn't have to hear me preach. So Emma would always come in with an icy, and she's like, I have a headache today. And I'm like, well, maybe it's just you don't want to hear it. I think maybe my preaching gave you headaches, you know? Maybe that's what it was. And we had Rachel. You started off as Rachel, the Portuguese name for Rachel, and you ended up being Rach before you finished. But these girls have went many miles with our youth group and seen a lot of fun and exciting things. Jesse's our newest member, and if you didn't notice a couple of months ago or a couple of weeks ago, Jesse had one of the he got voted best hair in youth group by me. He was rocking an awesome mullet. And he ended up cutting it off. I'm very disappointed with you for cutting it off. Maybe Mama made you, I don't know. But it was a great mullet. It was a good job. And each one of our students, I'm very proud of you. A lot of y'all have overcome things in your life. You've had troubles and trials, but you kept the faith and you continued going forward, and that's what I'm very proud of you. So tonight, this morning, we're going to go to the book of Hebrews, chapter 12, and one of my favorite passages in all the Bible. And if the youth tell you, if you ask your student, well, what's Brother Garrett's favorite passage? They're going to tell you it's all of them, because like every passage I say, well, this is my favorite one. This is my favorite one. But honestly, this is my favorite passage. And I think it's very fitting for today. And as I speak to our students this morning, I believe there's something in this passage that every person in here, no matter where you are in your life, that you can apply to your own life. So let's get started. Verse 1 of chapter 12, and it says, "Therefore, since we have so great a cloud of witnesses surrounding us, let us lay aside every encumbrance and sin which so easily entangles us. And let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God." Now let's get into this today. Students, as you go out, you've just been in the practice round, okay? You've been training. You have been working out and training for the race that is now going to be set before you. You're fixing to walk out of those school hallways. And I remember that day. Jesse, I remember those hallways at Opp High School. And I bet they smell the same way they did when I was there. That same distinct smell of Opp High School. And I remember that last test that I took in class. And I remember turning it in and finding out I was going to, well, it wasn't ever a mystery I was going to graduate, but it was an honor to graduate. I wasn't an honor grad. I missed it by 0.8 of a point, 0.8. It was just an honor to graduate. Let me just say that. And I remember thinking, whew, that's done. And we walked out of Opp High School. We graduated at the stadium. We walked out of that stadium, and life was before me. I was like, hey, here we go. Here we go. And I just realized that what was coming before me was a challenge. Life was not going to be easy. It wasn't going to be a cakewalk. I had prepared for that. So let's get into the scripture here. The first point I want to make to you today is that you need to remember the example that is set before you. Listen, some of the best passages in the entire New Testament is right here. And notice how the author of Hebrews says this. He says, "Therefore, because of." So we got to look back and say, well, what is the therefore? Because of the example that we saw from Hebrews 10:19 until Hebrews 11:40. Listen, if you have the opportunity to go home today and read those passages, go read them. They are some of the most rich, encouraging passages in all the Bible. And here the author of Hebrews says, because of the example that they have set before you, because of the faith that they had, because of the things that they endured for their faith, because of the challenges they had, because they kept their faith. Listen, in those chapters we see people it says they were sawn in half, they were stoned, they were shipwrecked, they were beaten, they were killed, all for their faith. And guess what happened? They didn't give up. They didn't renounce their faith. And listen, guys, they make a book now. If you like to read, there's a book called Fox's Book of the Martyrs. And it's page after page after page after page. It's hundreds of pages of people throughout the history of this world, throughout Christendom, that has gone and they have stood for their faith. They have endured their faith. They have set their eyes on the cloud of witnesses, and they kept their faith in the face of persecution. Many of them to the point of death. They kept their faith. You have such a great cloud of witnesses. This is the saints that have gone on before us. It says that these witnesses have given us an example of what it's like to walk in the faith no matter what. Now, how many of y'all folks in here are do-it-yourself people? Anybody? Anybody say, listen, Jack ain't going to hire nobody to do nothing, all right? Jack's like, hey, I got to build a house. I'm going to build it by hand. I need a trailer. I'm going to build it. Where most of us just go down to Ireland Trailers and say, hey, I need this. Jack's got a plan in his mind. He's going to do it himself. And if you didn't know, he has a YouTube channel that teach you how to do it too. So You need to go follow it. Be a subscriber. He will appreciate that. But listen, people nowadays put anything online on YouTube. You know, that's the go-to. Amy's car had a sensor came out the other day. A little sensor warning came up. And I called the Chevrolet place. Oh, yeah, that's that sensor. Well, how much will it cost for me to fix that sensor? Oh, that's a simple one to get to. Not including tax, $475. I said, well, how much is the sensor? Oh, $3 for the sensor. So guess what I did? I went on YouTube and I watched the guy change the sensor. And I went down to O'Reilly's. I bought the sensor from Whitney and I went and put it in my car for $3. Like, yeah. They set the example. Listen, you can find anything on there. How to build a house. How to do surgery. How many of y'all like watching surgery videos? Y'all remember the Surgery Channel? Y'all remember when TV had Surgery Channel and you could learn how to do brain surgery like any of us was ever going to do it? But you can go online and do anything. They set the example for you. They have shown you how to do these things. And here, as we go back and read Hebrews chapter 11, and we go back and look, they have give you the how to keep your faith. Listen, there are so many scary numbers out there. Seniors, hear me. People, they're saying that high school seniors, when they leave their church as a 12th grade student, they're saying like 68 to 72% of high school seniors never go back to church. They're polling freshmen in college. And like 60% of the freshmen they're polling in college say, I grew up in church, but I no longer believe in God. I grew up in church, but I no longer consider myself a Christian. I grew up in church, but I no longer identify. There's the new word. I no longer identify as a Christian, as a believer. Listen, so many of these people are walking away from the faith, but listen, you have been given the example. You have been given a path. You have been shown how to keep your faith. I say this with full confidence, but I believe every student in this room, well, not only our seniors, but every student should be able to share their testimony and defend their faith if they needed to. Not only do we have a great cloud of witnesses, and I know that's talking about that, but students, let me say this. This is off the passage here. But listen, you have a church family that loves you. You have a church family that wants to see you succeed. You have a church family that wants to see you do well in life. And you have a church family that, more importantly than all that, wants to see you keep the faith. Most of you students in here started in Awana. So your very first memories of church was learning Scripture. Remember those. Those are going to be important in your life. The next point is, we need to remember our examples. We have such a how-to guide. The next thing we need to do is remember to run the race with endurance. Now, Jesse, when I played football at Opp, every summer I missed football for church camp. Every summer. Week-long camp at Shaco. I shouldn't have been punished for it because, hey, listen, I was hiking in the mountains. We hiked 20 miles in Cheehaw Mountains with a 60-pound backpack. So I shouldn't have had to run for it, but I did every year. And every day that I missed, I had to run so many laps around the football field. And listen, the closest I've ever come to death was one summer I was out there running. Actually, Ray Wilson, who's at Andalusia now, was watching me run, making sure I was going to get my laps in. And I felt like I could hear ringing in my ears, and I couldn't see anymore. It like all went blurry, and I was ringing in my ears. And I stopped for a second, and Coach Wilson, and if you go to Andalusia, he said, oh, keep running, let's go. We ain't never going to get out of here. And I thought, well, this is how it's going to end. I mean, right here on Ops practice field. And I ran. I think it was 24 laps for every day that I missed. Y'all hear me? That's cruelty to people. 24 laps for every day. And I ran them because if I didn't, I wasn't on the team anymore. But let me tell you what it gave me. It gave me endurance. When everybody else was sucking wind, I was still running. Now, I wasn't running much because I was on the sideline. But when I ran from the locker room to the sideline, I had endurance, buddy. When I ran back to the locker room to get some extra equipment for somebody, I could do it faster than anybody. When I was on scout defense, I had endurance. I ran the race with endurance. But listen, whenever I would run those days, the coach would tell me, you can take off your shoulder pads and your helmet. And some of the other guys running with me would take their football pants off. Now, we had on like running shorts or something. And they would run without the shoulder pads. Listen, I didn't have enough sense to do that. I wore my black helmet and my shoulder pad. I just kept running. But he goes in here to say, when we run the race that's laid before us, let us lay aside everything that's going to tangle us. Let us lay aside the sin which will distract us, which will slow us down, which will take away our endurance. Listen, folks, every day of our life, there's things that is put before our faith. There's things that's put in our life that does nothing but entangles us and it slows down our Christian life. I was listening to a sermon this week, and he was talking about depression and just different things like that. And he talked about how many people that come into his church for counseling, and you know what their thing for depression was? He said these people were depressed because they wasn't getting enough likes on Facebook. Their videos wasn't getting enough views on Facebook. Can you believe that? People that are absolutely depressed in life because they wasn't being watched on social media. Listen, it's the little things. They were completely off their track in their Christian walk, all because they wasn't getting views on Facebook. Guys, listen, Satan is going to use the smallest of things in our life. He's going to use the little bitty things that is going to just burden us down and put us to the point where we don't even want to run the race that is set before us anymore. He goes on to say that the weight, which he was talking, the author of Hebrews was talking about the law, the legalism, all those things that we put on ourselves. But here's what he's saying. He's saying, don't let the sin entangle you. Listen, if you go back and look at the Olympics, back in the very first Olympics in Greece and all those things, the runners used to get down to nothing but their undergarments because they didn't want their togas or whatever those things were called to tie up their legs. They didn't want anything to slow them down. They wanted to be able to run the race with the littlest bit of hindrance that they could possibly have. Students, listen to me, and adults, everybody, listen to me. We need to make sure in our life that we're not putting things in our life that is hindering our Christian walk. We need to make sure that we are not allowing sin to come into our life. Jack said this other day in his message. It says all it takes is a little bit of sin. Just a little bit of sin to get in our life, and next thing you know, it's turned into a big problem. Students, let me say this, college students, especially those who are moving to Troy and to Auburn, if you do not find a church within the first 3 weeks of moving to your college town, this is a true statistic. I have polled our former college students, they will agree. If you don't find a church within the first 3 weeks of moving to college, a college town, you will not attend church your entire time in college. Unless you come home, obviously. But if you don't find a church within the first 3 weeks of moving to your college town, you will not attend church through your college years. It's proven fact. Listen, it's in those moments that we get sidetracked in our Christian walk. It is in those moments when we let a little bit of sin come into our life. It's in those moments when we let a little bit of stuff weigh us down in our Christian walk. And next thing we know, 4 years later, we haven't darkened the doors of the church, and we don't know why we are in the place we are in our life. We need to make sure, and the only way that you can run with endurance is that you are committed to putting God's word in your life. You're committed to prayer. You're committed to being a part of a Christian family. And I'm not talking about your immediate family. I'm talking about a Christian church family. Listen, I want to say, on a side note here, I think that's one of the greatest things we have going here in this church. We're family. We're family no matter what the last names are. We're all family. When one of us hurt, we all hurt. When one of us celebrate, we all celebrate. You need to find that. The last point I want to make this morning is you need to remember what your focus is on. Y'all remember when ADHD was first kind of being diagnosed? Y'all remember when people had ADHD back in those days, like when I was a teenager, when I was a kid? You know, people would say, I'll tell you what they need. They don't need no medicine. They need a belt. Y'all remember hearing that? Because I heard my daddy say that. I got a family member. My mom asked me not to say her name. Somebody might know her. I said, I'm going to use my cousin in an illustration. She said, please don't use names. They may be watching. I'm pretty sure they're not. But she had really bad ADHD. Really bad when she was a kid. I'm talking like, y'all don't even know. And listen, when we would all go out as a family to restaurants and just on vacation, we used to family vacation. We'd go to Panama City, and there was a little bitty hotel there called the Blue Dolphin. Does anybody remember the Blue Dolphin? Little bitty mom and pop place. It's all we could afford. We were cotton mill people. And we would go to the Blue Dolphin. I remember as a kid, that was the best time of our life. Simple, simple, simple. But my cousin would go, and all the rest of us would just be wandering around, doing our thing. But my cousin had to have a leash. Y'all know what I'm talking about? That's how bad she was. My aunt would have to put this, it's funny now, but my aunt would have to strap this leash to her with like one of those extendable things. Y'all know? Because she would run off, like she would be like, oh, look. And she would just go off. Matter of fact, she got kidnapped one time in the Dothan Walmart. Some lady carried her away because she had wandered off, and they caught the lady backing her car out of the Walmart parking lot. She was in the back seat. And, of course, the lady got arrested. So my aunt had to start putting a leash on her everywhere she went. And if she ever got close to water, like a pool or something, she would say, oh, look, a pool. And she couldn't swim, but she would jump in. So they would have a leash everywhere she went. And she had a bad problem. Everywhere she went, when she would run, walk, no matter what. We don't know, to this day, we don't know why, but she would look back like this everywhere she was walking. And she played t-ball. I remember watching her t-ball game, and she would hit the ball, and then she would run down first baseline looking back at the tee like this. And every single time, she would run into the first base coach and just hit the ground. And they would get up, and then she would run between first and second, looking back at the first base coach, trip over the bag. I mean, it was comical as a kid. I got a home video. I wish I could have found it. We were doing trick-or-treating one year while all my family was together, all my cousins. And she got out of the car first, and she took off running. She was running to the house, looking back at everybody at the car. She was going to be the first one on the porch, and boom, right into the glass door. Rolled off the porch, busted her head open. It was my favorite memory. But everything she done in life, and guess what? Her daughter lived with mom and dad for a while. When she runs, does the same thing. She looks back. It must be genetic. I don't know. But listen, when you're constantly looking back, you're going to run into something. Here, the author of Hebrews says, let your focus on, fix your eyes, set your eyes like concrete. Set your eyes on Jesus, the author and the perfecter of your faith. Listen, Hunter did track and field. You don't run track and field looking back, do you, buddy? You look at the finish line. Racehorses, if you look at racehorses, they put blinders on their eyes. Why do they put blinders on their eyes? Because they want the horse looking straight at the finish line. Listen, seniors, listen, everybody in here. The number one thing you need to do in your life is you need to fix your eyes on Jesus. You need to say, hey, listen, I'm not going to look at what the world tells me. I'm not going to look at what media tells me. I'm not going to depend on social media. I'm not going to depend on this. I'm going to fix my eyes on Jesus, and He is going to be my finishing line. And if it doesn't fall within those parameters, it's not important to my life. Fix your eyes on Jesus. That's going to be more important, should be more important than your degree, how much money you're going to earn, who you're going to marry, where you're going to live. The most important thing is this. Fix your eyes on Jesus. Don't take them off. So what I'm going to do here at the end, we are going to commission our students. We're going to commission them as we send them out to the mission field. So in just a second, I'm going to ask our students to come down. And I'm going to ask our church family, as a family of believers, if you want to and you're willing to, I want you to come around. We're going to pray over our students. We're going to pray for their future. Brother Jack's going to pray for them. We're going to ask them to come down in a second. But students, I want you to think about this. Remember all the things that you have learned over the years. Remember the stories that we have learned in our youth group. Remember what we have learned at camp. Remember the scripture that we have learned. Those things are important. Listen, you may not have known it then, but youth group's not a babysitting service. Youth group is here to prepare you for what's coming ahead. Kind of like a trail guide. And I want you to remember those things. I want you to be vocal about your faith. In a world that tells Christians to shut up and we don't want to hear what you got to say and we don't want you to share Jesus, we don't want to hear about Jesus, be vocal for Jesus. Share your faith. No matter where you go. But I want you always to remember this. No matter where you go. I had a student come in my office last week. He's moving to Montgomery. He came by and he said, "Hey, I was talking about you the other day to my other military guys, and I don't know what to call you anymore. Are you my youth pastor still? Or are you my pastor? Or like what should I call you?" And I said, "Buddy, until the day we all die, I will always be your student pastor. I'm not your pastor, that's Brother Jack. I'm your student pastor. So students, I want you to know this. I love y'all very much. Very much. And I want you to know this. No matter how old we get, I will always be your student pastor. You're going to go a long way in life. You're going to be successful. You're going to do great things. And I'm excited to see that. My number hasn't changed, all right? You can text me. You can call me. I'm there. I love y'all. Students, all right, y'all come on up. Rachel, Emma, Judd, Jesse, Hunter, y'all